Get my 6. I am the man who invented Halloween. Ha, 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 ha. Get my 6. Get my 6. Get my 6 too. We are the men who invented Halloween. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Get my 6. I am the man who invented Halloween. Get out of here, jokers. I'm going to throw them. Work too hard to make those. I'll tell you what, as I swat away the flies that obviously just had a hatch right here, when October Nights Part 2 comes out, by September, got to have it out, in plenty of time before Halloween to get you the autographed copies and everything. I will be known as the man who invented the entire freaking month of October. You mark my words, I'm telling you now, I will become the man who invented October. Don't want to dwell on that too much, but I'm telling you. I said the other day, I don't want to dwell on it too much because I have a very creepy story, real ghost story submitted by a viewer like you, or if it is you, if your name's Kristen Ann, and your husband sent me this shirt, Timmy Howard. Keep him in your prayers, still struggling with health issues. Continue to pray for Bill Poole, who lost his fur baby here just a few days ago. So I'm going to get to this story. I don't want to dwell too much on October Nights Part 2. Let me just tell you, like I said the other day, I said this thing was going to be like 50% longer than Part 1. It's going to be almost twice as long. The average story in Part 1 was about 3,000 words long. Plenty long enough. You get your beginning, your middle, your end. I did it right this time. Listen, everybody says, how do you make a good story? Well, you've got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But they don't have to be told in that order. And to do it properly and correctly, they're usually not told in that order, okay? But the average story in Part 2 is like 5,000 words. Some of them go as long as 8,000 words. And there's no filler. There's no fluff. It's just that's how much meat and potatoes are in these things. You're going to have to hit pause to go to the restroom, to get more snacks, more beverages when I'm reading these things to you in October. And I am going to read them, each and every single one of them. So if you can't afford the book, fret not. Come here and watch them read to you by me, the author, for free, just like with Part 1. The playlist is on our channel. If you miss that, go listen to it. It's going to be great. So anyway, I want to read Chris and Ann's story, and then I want to give a big thank you to about 806 of you, and I want to beg a favor of another 194 as of this recording. Kristen sent this in a comment here just a few days ago in another video, and I apologize for taking a few days to get around to it. Guys, girls, I'm going to have to do it. I'm just going to have to go set up an email so you can send me these things directly so I don't have to find them through the comments. My days start at 5 a.m. They don't end till about 11 to 11:30 p.m. at night, and they're not full of filler. It's meat and potatoes, brah. The first 2 hours is working out. 6 to 8 hours of reading, writing, rewriting, editing, the woodworking stuff. You wait till you see. These are not going in the Etsy store yet. You wait till like mid-August when guys, I have bought power tools, scroll saws. I'm doing reclaimed lumber projects. It's going to blow your mind. You're going to be like, wow, I remember those little sticks you started carving, last spring. You've come a long way. You wait. All Halloween themed. I am so excited for October. All right. But I'm going to have to open that email to get to stories like this quicker so you guys can send them in more. It's coming. I've been saying that. It's coming. But here's Kristen Ann's story. She says, "Hi, Kevin. A few videos ago, there was a cloaked, dark figure in the woods behind you. Potentially. I don't normally share stories, but I want to share an experience I had. Many years ago, while in bed, I saw a black hooded man in my doorway. It floated towards me slowly, and I heard it breathing. I just saw movement. She says, I'm not kidding, I heard it. I couldn't see his face, and it was not holding anything. He was just all dark. I couldn't move as I was frozen in fear. The closer it floated towards me, the more it seemed to disappear. Finally, it was gone. I haven't seen it since, but have seen a little boy a few times. I'm not sure what the history of our apartment is, but something is here. We try not to talk out loud about it, as it makes them stronger, is what we've heard. But I was left with questions. What did I see and why? Feel free to share. Tim and I love your channel and watch daily. Oh, and we live next door to a funeral home. I was going to say, I have no clue what you saw until I got to that end part there. You may or may not have seen the freaking Grim Reaper showing up to escort a soul to the other side, and it just got the wrong address and had to go next door. Seriously. And this is another reason I want to set up the emails. You get these stories, and I want to make it clear. And those of you who have been following this channel for many years know this. I have never claimed to see a Bigfoot Sasquatch. I have never claimed that I believe in my soul of souls, that him, her, it, or they, or any and all things paranormal even exist. All I've ever done is left an open mind to the existence of all these things and come out here in the woods. And Bill Poole was excited about this in the comments yesterday. I'd mentioned the other day about how once I get this October Nights thing, part Doha, that's 2 in Visayan, my wife's native language, done, we're heading back into the woods. Fall is coming on quickly. We're going back to the lair that we discovered in 2019, okay? And we're going to see if we can find them suckers again, whatever that was that we saw in the video. So, Kristen Ann, if you guys are living close to a funeral home, I do have a theory that, and it's science, it talks about energy. Energy cannot be either created or destroyed. It exists in multiple forms with potential energy, which again doesn't exist in humans because people either do or they don't. I'm going to talk to you about that more in a minute. Or, sorts of active energy. Well, when it goes away, it doesn't just disappear and vanish and no longer exist. It transforms into different forms. I know that sounds redundant, but whatever. So are you. I don't know. Here come the crows. Keep your eyes open. Keep getting my 6. So, I now want to move on, and I've got 3 book recommendations for you here that I think a lot of you are going to enjoy, and it has nothing to do with paranormal or Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and no, they're not books I wrote. But I truly want to thank those of you who went over to my buddy Travis Daigle's channel, Fighting Past 40, and subscribed. 2 days ago, he had 130 subscribers. We're trying to get him to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours as quickly as possible. Combat veteran, served in Afghanistan as a U.S. Army Green Beret. And I'm going to put his TED Talk on the end of this video. He did an actual TED Talk years ago. It's 9 minutes and change. Watch it if you haven't. You want to talk about being motivated. This guy was the fat kid, in his own words, weighing over 300 pounds in high school, constantly bullied, constantly ridiculed, never any good at sports, didn't like the way he was living, so he changed it. He changed the way he was living, and it changed his entire life. Became a first-generation college graduate, got an engineering degree, went into engineering, wasn't really into it. He wanted to do something physical because by this time he had gotten into exercise and all this stuff and had lost more than 100 pounds. Left that at the height of the war on terror to not just join the military, not just join the army, and not just join the infantry. That's where I met him, at infantry school, Fort Benning, Georgia, 2007. But this man went on to become a Green Beret. I'm not going to spoil it for you. You watch his TED Talk, because he talks about how he went from the bullied fat kid in high school, walking around with his head down, to being the guy in Afghanistan as a Green Beret saying, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of darkness, I shall fear no evil, because I am the baddest MFer in the valley." Those are true words. See that transformation, watch the TED Talk that I'm going to put on the end of this the end of this video, subscribe to his channel, please. Watch his other videos. You're going to get motivated. I've been re-motivated watching his videos, and I'm going to talk about something, kind of piggyback on something he addressed the other day in a video about government. Everybody wants to complain about government. You think about it. Think about people who are out there in the workforce. They feel that they're not making enough money. They're working for minimum wage, which isn't enough money. We all know that. A lot of times salaries are too low. You know, inflation is going through the roof, 9.1% inflation, but salaries aren't going up. As a matter of fact, salaries really are not much higher now than they were 20 years ago, even though inflation has continued to go up. And everybody wants to blame the government. They want to blame the president, no matter who the president is, whether it's Brandon or Don, whoever's in there, they want to blame them. They want to blame a political party, but they never want to stop and take a look at the relationship they have between themselves and their employer. Travis Daigle goes on at length about this in one of his recent videos, and he says a couple things that I just... Listen, this is huge. I know I'm guilty of giving Gen Zers hell for still living at home and not having any, and this isn't all of them. I tell you, the cream, I've said it before, I'll say it again, the cream will always rise to the top. There are Gen Zers out there right now getting straight A's in college. There are Gen Zers out there who have gotten out of school with straight A's, and they are now making 6-digit salaries. The day will come soon when they're going to be leading this country. They're going to be the congressmen, the congresswomen, eventually the president. The cream will always rise to the top. But I give some of them hell because such a large percentage of them aren't doing anything. They seem to lack ambition, no goals, no work ethic, and they've suckered their parents. Once upon a time, I would say their parents are enabling to live this way, but their parents are just suckers for allowing them to do it. New kind of way of thinking that came to me after reading a book recently called can't even remember. It's called Rational Recovery. So it's a book about addiction. Yeah, now I can't remember the man's name that wrote it, but he's talking about this concept of enablers and codependents. They're suckers. They're buying the lies, whatever. But Travis points out a different way to view things, and I'm going to go a lot less brashly upon Gen Zers after listening to Travis word it as such, because I kind of get what's going on now. And I'm going to tell you, if I found myself in that same position as a lot of these parents here in a few years when my son's of age, I'm probably going to be that sucker too, and I'm going to tell you why. Travis Daigle talks about the concept of having FU money. Now, in a lot of his earlier videos, he kind of would just come out and say what it was, but he's not now, because he's getting a lot of schools wanting to play his videos, his motivational talks to students, and so he's getting away from the foul language, the adult language, and he never used it much in the first place, just every now and then. And I can understand it when he made that video where he was thanking us for coming over to his channel to support him, because the dude was excited. Did you see that video? I mean, could you imagine? You've had this YouTube channel for 4 or 5 months. You've got 200 videos uploaded to it. You got 130 subscribers. You leave the house one day, you go to work, you got 130 subscribers. You come home, and at the end of the day, and you got 286 subscribers. You're like, what? He was excited, and he was saying thank you, so he dropped a couple F-bombs. I get it, okay? We're all human. But I did email him and say, hey, yo, stop. Okay, so anyway, but we actually had a conversation about that. We're talking on the phone tomorrow. I'm so excited. So anyway, here's the thing. He has this concept of having FU money, so that if you get that job, that, you're willing to give it a chance. The pay is close enough. You're not committed elsewhere for the time being. So you give it a chance. And you say, maybe this will work. Maybe they'll increase my salary. It might be a fit. So you go in there and you find out it's a heavily toxic environment, similar to, through my own experiences, the United States Postal Service in Charlottesville, Virginia. 112 routes. Most of the full-timers who've got seniority and who are strongly represented by a union call out sick all the time. They just don't come to work. They don't come to work. So the people that were doing what I was doing, CCA, City Carriers Assistant, will get 1.5 routes a day, and then when you're done, you're coming in at 8 o'clock after 12 hours of chucking mail all over Charlottesville, getting screamed at by a bunch of self-important yuppies because they haven't had their mail in 2 weeks. I get it, but hey, it was never my fault, and it's not the fault of those assistant carriers. You're given 50 more packages and told by the supervisor that they've already been scanned as delivered, because they do that there, and you got to drop them off on your way home, and you're not allowed to be done until you drop off the last box. So you find yourself in a toxic environment like that. If you're broke, if you have no money, like you have no funds, and you need that job, you're screwed because you're stuck. You can't leave. You're wearing shackles put on you by your employer. There's no way out of them. But if you got a nest egg, if you got, whatever the amount might be, we all live differently at different rates, and that's something Travis hit on too, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. You got enough cash in the bank to where you don't have to put up with that toxic environment. You don't. You go in and they say, hey, you worked 12 hours the last 5 days. It's supposed to be your day off. We're calling you in. Come on in because you're going to work 12 hours a day too. You say, F you. No, I'm not. And you quit. Because you can afford to pay your bills for the next few months or whatever while you find a better position. Well, here's what's going on with Gen Zers. It really is as simple. They might not have the FU money, but they've got supportive parents who've been through the ringer and have been abused by toxic employers and who have worked in toxic work environments who aren't going to let their children go through the same thing. So they're letting them stay home. Now, I'll admit this, because every time you point the finger at somebody, you got 3 pointing back at yourself, right? Here's what the 3 pointing back at me when I call these Gen Zers, especially the guys, beta males, because I am of the firm belief that it takes more than just being in possession of the proper plumbing to be a man. Historically, men have been providers, they have produced, they have taken care of their responsibilities, and you see a bunch of, listen, there's so much to this. I have a good buddy, one of the most educated men I know. He's got a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD in science. He got bored as a scientist, so then he went to law school and got a law degree and practiced law. And get this, that's my buddy Mike. Shout out Mike, Lonnie, if you're listening. That's his wife. Did it all from a wheelchair. Got in a car accident when he was 17, lost his ability to walk. He said, well, if I can't use my back, I'm going to use my brain. Self-made guy, and I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to divulge his private information. He's a prime example of how where there's a will, there's a way. And for people like him who don't make excuses, man, we could all use that as an excuse until the cows come home to do nothing with our lives. This man used it as motivation to go out there and do more in his lifetime than any 20 people who are of average or slightly above achievers. It's amazing, amazing. What was my point to this? Jealousy. The 3 fingers pointing back to me is this. I'm from a generation, Gen X, like many of you, and most of you are baby boomers. The baby boomers especially, when we turned 18, we could either go to college, get a job, or go to the military. Staying home was not an option because that would bring shame to our family that our family was not willing to accept and bear upon their shoulders. So largely, I'm jealous, and I'd say a lot of you out there is jealous as well when we see the generation below us. It started with the millennials during the Great Recession in 2008. A lot of families contracted. A lot of adult children moved back home out of pure necessity. Most of the millennials moved out when that phase was over, though, but Gen Zers, they just never left. I'll admit there's jealousy because when my son is of age, if he says, well, college isn't really for me, but I want to go to work. You know what, Dad? I'd like to be a mailman. I'm going to give it a shot. Maybe things have changed. And he ends up going to work for the United States Postal Service in Charlottesville, Virginia, and he's getting crapped on by that toxic work environment and those incompetent supervisors who were terrible mail carriers, so they make them supervisors for some reason. He comes home, he says, Dad, gosh, I've been putting in 15 hours a day. I worked 17 days straight once without a day off, and we were told if we were to request a day off or if we didn't come in, we would be disciplined. That's a violation of federal labor laws. But they intimidate you to do it, and if you need the money, suck it up, buttercup, you're going to do it, right? I will not allow my son to be treated that way. If he goes to a situation like that and he comes home, he says, Dad, I don't know if I can do this or I don't know if I want to do it, I'd say stop. You stay here, figure something else out, take your time. I would be willing to do that. And that's what we're seeing right now with Gen Z. And I guess those of us who are a little hard on them are so because we're jealous. I know I am because I didn't have that luxury. It was either go to college, go to the military, get a job, you know? So anyway, I told you I'd give you some book recommendations. Travis Daigle, one of the things he's big about, talking about, is discipline and personal ownership, as far as owning the decisions we make, owning the fact that the situations we find ourselves in life are a result of the decisions we've made in the past. And if we stay here, it's because we continue to make the same choices. And if we want something different, we've got to think differently and make different decisions, right? I was a financial planner for 8 years, spent 6 years with a major brokerage firm. Then I went independent for 2 years. Then I left that industry because it just wasn't for me, for one thing, but I also wanted to join the military, and I'm glad I did, or I would have never met Travis Daigle. So, but when I was a broker, people used to ask me about money all the time. The biggest benefit, the greatest blessing I got from working in that industry was that I learned about money and I learned about finances. Travis Daigle on his channel, Fighting Past 40, is doing something that the public schools in this country have never done and that they need to do. And that personally, I believe it's the responsibility of the families at home to do, but so many of them don't do it. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. We're doing it with our son. Our son has purchased stock in his brokerage account before. He has a bank account. We want him to understand finances because I'm a firm believer, if you don't understand money at 10, you're not going to understand it at 20 or 40 or 60, okay? Somebody commented, and I wish I would remember her. I could remember her name. It was a woman. She mentioned about how when she grew up, and she left this comment on Travis's channel, she thought that her family was poor because anytime her or her siblings wanted something, the parents would always say, we don't have money for that kind of stuff. We can't afford to buy that, blah, blah, blah. So what that did is that developed inside of her deep-rooted insecurities about money. She grew up thinking, oh my gosh, we're poor. We've got to go without all these things. And now even as an adult, she still has that ingrained insecurity associated with money. Well, she would later learn as an adult, her family was not poor at all. Nothing of the sort. They were frugal. As a matter of fact, she said in her comment, and if you're the one that made this comment in this video below and retell your story. You can even go to Travis's channel, copy it and paste it, and I'll pin it to this one, okay? Pin the comment underneath this video. Her father actually built their house by hand, buying the materials, doing all the work by himself. Now, I might imagine, she didn't say, but I'd imagine he probably had some people help him at times because, you know, you need somebody else to hold the end of that 12-foot board. It took 7 years, but he never had debt. He never had a mortgage. And this is one of the things, I mean, how many of us and how many of you out there may have been living in the same house for the last 20 years, but you still have a 30-year mortgage on it because every time you get a little bit of equity in it, you go out there and you pull it out so you can go buy other stuff. Or, you know, and maybe it's not because you're materialistic. Maybe you're in a bind. Maybe you've got some doctor's bills, medical bills piling up. You say, well, I'm just going to do it this once to pay that debt off. But then it happens again and it happens again. Travis talks in his video about how discipline is so important and most people don't have it, and about how you probably heard it said that the more you make, the more you spend. This is why we just don't have the discipline to just stop, to cut it off. And I'm guilty. We were living just fine in the Philippines on nothing, and then we've had periods where I've had to. There have been times when I've wondered if my bank was going to allow my employers, be they Google or whoever, since I've been working in social media, to deposit my next paycheck because it was so big. Was it going? And I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you. But then at the end of the day, during times when we've lacked discipline, we didn't really have a whole lot left over by the time the following. And it's like, and I talked to my wife about this. I said, honey, this is downright embarrassing. We've got to stop taking trips, buying things, and we're not materialistic. We like experiences. We like to go places. Our biggest cutback this calendar year was eating out. We'd want to go into town to go for a walk, and we'd say, hey, let's go into town and go for a walk. And we go for a walk, and Charlottesville has more restaurants per capita than any city in America than Atlanta. So if you go for a walk in downtown Charlottesville, man, you're smelling food the whole way, the whole walk. And we'd always just end up eating somewhere. And then we'd get to where we'd say, okay, let's park here. Let's walk to this place and eat there because that's about 45 minutes. Let's eat there. Then we'll walk back to the truck. That way we got an hour and a half walk in. We have a nice dinner. We finally decided to start writing down what we were spending on eating out, and it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. We stopped doing it. And now, well, record high gas prices this summer, but we could still afford to take the trip to the Grand Canyon just because we stopped eating out. We eat out maybe once a month. We were eating out 3 or 4 times a week. So it's discipline, and we're all guilty of it, including myself. But people would ask me when I was a financial planner, and I'm going to wrap it up with this, they would say, tell me all about money, want to know about money. Because I was not taught about money either in the schools or in my family. I could relate to the comment that woman made because, and I'm just going to, I don't talk about my childhood much, but I'm going to tell you an example. I was in 4th grade, and we were having probably a Halloween party. And the teacher was like, okay, we need volunteers to bring this. So, me, I love it. I want to bring this. And so I volunteered to bring something. I don't know what it was. Well, when I got home, I got in trouble. My mother was livid. She let me know under no uncertain terms that we did not have the money to buy snacks and food and treats for other people and blah, 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 blah. And I'd better never, ever volunteer to buy anything for something like that again. Hey, I got the message. Because that's not where it ended. This is the okay for social media version. So I stopped volunteering. 5th grade, never volunteered for anything. Got to 6th grade, parties are coming. We get close towards the end of the year, and my teacher called me out, and she was a wonderful woman. I really liked her, and she was a great educator. She looked at me and she said, Kevin, you have not volunteered to bring anything in one time. Not once. And that's just selfish, and that's just greedy. Why do you never offer to bring anything in for a party? I was a little kid. I was 11 or 12 years old. I told her, I said, well, because I don't want to get in trouble. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, I volunteered to bring in some cookies or something a couple of years ago. Man, I got it bad when I got home. I said, my mom told me to never volunteer to bring anything to school for stuff like this, or I'm going to get in trouble when I get home. You know what the teacher said to me? She said, Kevin, your father makes more money than anybody in this county. And she got up out of the classroom and walked to the teacher next door and said, watch my class. And she went to the office and called my parents. Let's just say we made a considerable donation for that party. And listen, I'm just speaking my truth. This happened. I was led to believe I was poor. Deep-rooted insecurities. Me and my siblings at times when we were a little bit older, we'd ask our dad about money. We'd say, we want to know about money, because he'd be watching the news, be watching the stock index thing. We'd say, hey, how's the stock market work? Can you teach us about money? And he'd look at us and he'd say, you got any money? And we'd say, well, no. And he'd go, well, what do you need to know about it for then? Never told us crap. I'm not blaming my parents, okay, for me. What I'm saying is the biggest gift, the greatest benefit to me as somebody that worked on Wall Street for 8 years was that I finally got to learn properly and correctly about money and about finances. So I finally got to get my crap straight after totally screwing up for many years, because I just didn't, I went to college, first generation college student. They're giving away these foot-long Snickers bars on campus as long as you sign an application for a credit card. I'm like, man, I want that candy bar. Yeah, I'll sign. Not even expecting to get the card. 2 weeks later, you go down to your P.O. box there in the dorms and like, damn, here's a credit card. It's got a $500 limit on it. Let's go to the bar. You know what I mean? And then thought I heard a growl. So anyway, and it just spiraled out of control from there. And it took years. Listen, you know what they say? If it takes you 6 months to walk into the middle of the swamp, you can't turn around and walk out in 6 days. I screwed my finances up for years, and it took me years to unscrew them. So when people ask me about money, about finances, I would say 2 things. Number 1, go to Fighting Past 40 and watch Travis Degles' videos and subscribe while you're there. Also, I recommend 3 books that I read more than 20 years ago. More than 20 years ago, 1999, because one of the financial planners who trained me said, look, we can teach you all about stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, beta coefficients, future earnings, PE ratios, all this mumbo jumbo that most people don't understand, but that actually does mean something. And that's why most people who do their own investing suck at it and lose money. That, and because number 2, they can't detach their emotions from their own money. If you don't have the ability to do that, you've got no business managing your own money because you're too emotional about it. But this guy recommended 3 books to me. He said, you read these books and you will understand the mentality of money in such a way that the math will never allow you to do so. I'm going to recommend these 3 books to you right now, and I've been going for half an hour. I got wood projects to work on in the wood shop, brah. But listen, they are... I'm going to introduce them all to you at once, and then I'll speak about them briefly, like a minute or less on each one. But if you want to increase your knowledge on personal finances, read these. I mean, this is not sponsored. None of these authors, know me or anything. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. You've probably seen him all. Listen, dude's for real. I thought he was a joke too. 20 years ago, dude is a genius. Okay. The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. And The Millionaire Next Door. This was written by a couple guys. Thomas J. Stanley, PhD. William D. Danko, PhD. Both of them have PhDs in economics, and at the end of the book, they said that they pretty much determined after interviewing all these self-made millionaires, most of whom, if they did have a college degree, it was from a small state college like the one I went to, but many of them didn't even have a college degree. They realized that though they had PhDs in economics, they knew nothing about money. So, minute or less. Okay, this is a fictional story written as a fable, but it basically teaches you about the 10 principles of wealth. It's an amazing book. It's an easy read. You can get through it in a night, but it's a story of how there's this young man, he desires gold, because it's set in ancient Babylon, a fictitious city a couple thousand years ago. And he wants to know how to build wealth. So this wealthy man who is self-made takes him under his wing and teaches him. Because it's funny, at the beginning, the king calls the 10 richest guys in Babylon in and he says, guys, I know we're friends, but I got to break some harsh news to you. They say, well, what's that? And he goes, we have a very poor society. You guys have all the money. You guys have like 97% of the wealth, and then the other 97% of the people are squabbling over the other 3%, just like in the real world, right? So he says, I hate to do this to you because we're all friends, but I'm going to take all your money from you as king, IRS, and we're going to redistribute the wealth so everybody has a fair share. And he thinks his buddies are getting ready to punch him in the face or yell at him and scream at him. They just break into laughter. They just start dying laughing. They roll out of the chairs, and he's like, I don't get it. Told you guys I was going to take away all your money. I figured you're going to, kick my butt, but you're laughing? What am I missing here? Swallow a nap. One of the guys tells him, he goes, look, the reason we have money and the other people don't is because we understand the principles of wealth and they don't. Said you can take all the money from those of us who have it today, distribute it to the people that don't have it, and in 5 years at the most, we will have it back and they'll still be broke. It's not about what you have or what you're given. It's about what you understand and the discipline, like Travis Daigle says, that you have to keep it and grow it. You got to read it. There's 10 great concepts in here that discusses that issue. Millionaire Next Door. This is actual compiled nonfiction research these 2 PhDs in economics did on wealth in America. Self-made wealth in America. Not trust babies, not people that, were born into affluence, but people who came from non-affluent socioeconomic status and generated their own wealth within their lifetime. He talks, and the biggest things here's some spoilers. The number one is, like Travis Daigle talks about, discipline. They have the discipline. These are the people that when, they start out maybe making $20,000 a year when they were young, they learn to live on that. So when a few years go by and they're making $100,000 a year, they treat themselves, but they're only living on $30,000 a year. They're banking the rest. When they're making $250,000 a year, they're living on $80,000 a year, banking the rest. Do the math in time. It says, I think on average, the average self-made millionaire in America hits the net worth of $1 million at 53. And if you're not familiar with net worth, that's if you take everything you own, all your assets, your house, your bank accounts, your stocks, your mutual funds, sell off or get rid of all your debt, anything that remains on your mortgage, any credit card debt, whatever you might owe on a vehicle or whatever the difference is, that's your net worth. Not surprisingly, most people's net worth in America is actually a negative number until they're 50. So don't beat yourself up if that's your case. But the average self-made millionaire in America hits a net worth of $1 million at about age 53, 55. Okay? And then finally, this is the book that will blow your mind. When I read this book, it's like I was reading a book about my dad, except this guy's dad communicated with his kids. Listen, if you have a job, J-O-B, and this guy says it himself, Robert Kiyosaki, job is an acronym that stands for just over broke. So many people are too scared to leave the safety or the security of that job, though, to go out there and actually make it on their own. He says in here, there are two ways to make real money if you want to make real money. If you want to work for somebody, that's fine. You got to do it as either a salesperson or a subcontractor, or you got to own your own business. You got to be your own guy or your own girl, because that's the only way you're going to make any real money. And this is true, but most people are simply too scared to get it, and when you look at their fear, it makes no sense to me. They would rather knowingly get a paycheck, a consistent paycheck every 2 weeks that they know is less money than they need to pay their bills, or if they're paying their bills, it's certainly less money than they need to live the lives they want to live. But they stay there out of fear. This guy, man, he talks about, and if you can implement what he preaches, and we do that, it's like buying stuff. The question he would ask himself is, okay, if I buy this thing, will this thing be able to generate more money for me? Will it help me create more money? Prime example, man, my carving tools that I paid, bought a knife set for $50. The tunakas I make have already paid for the knife set multiple times over. That's just one example. So I'm telling you, if you want to learn more about money and finances, and if you have the discipline to apply it to your own life and change your world, do two things. Go listen to Travis Daigle's channel, Fighting Past 40, subscribe. He's less than 200 people away from getting to 1,000 subscribers. This is our goal. This man spent time in war in Afghanistan as a U.S. Army Green Beret. Okay, if for no other reason, go subscribe to him for that as a way of saying thank you. Highly recommend these books. And now that I think I've said all I could say in 37 minutes, I have no clue why this video went on for so long. Wait till October. When I read some of those stories from October Nights Part 2, there's going to be some 45-minute long videos. And there's no filler. It's all meat and potatoes. See you for more next time. See you for more next time. See you for more next time.